More often than not, hype and major video game releases go hand in hand. Whether it's because of the developer that's making a game, the franchise a game belongs to, or how promising a game has looked in the lead up to its launch, there are some releases that we just can't help but be excited for. Many live up to those expectations and live on in our memories for years to come, but unfortunately, there have been more than a few in recent memory that have fallen woefully short. Here, we're going to talk about a few such games. A quick note before we move forward. Please consider subscribing and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. And while you are at it, also please click like if you enjoyed this video. It really helps us out. With that out of the way, let's begin. Anthem. BioWare has been on a downward spiral for a few years now, but no one really expected them to make a game that would fundamentally fail on as so many levels as Anthem did. Hyped to hell and back for years before its launch, when Anthem finally did launch, it turned out to be a dud. It lacked the typical storytelling flair of BioWare, while those who were expecting a solid looter shooter were also left disappointed. Add that to the technical issues and weird design decisions that throttled some of the game's best ideas, and what we were left with was an underwhelming game that struggled to find its identity. Terrible post-launch support led to Anthem being dropped like a brick in no time, and though BioWare is working on an overhaul of the game, we all know that they're going to have to do something drastic to bring this one back from the dead. Fallout 76. From the moment it was first revealed, though Fallout 76 looked conceptually interesting in a few ways, there were a number of people who were skeptical about what it was going for. This is a series that has historically resonated with people because of its characters, quests, stories, and choice-based gameplay, so a Fallout game that focused instead entirely on online gameplay could have easily gone wrong. And it did. And not just for those reasons. Bethesda's woefully outdated engine led to a game that was riddled with bugs and glitches and terrible optimization no matter what platform you played it on. Credit where credit is due though, Bethesda has legitimately turned things around for this game. There were many other developers who would have cut their losses and dropped post-launch plans after such a disastrous launch. Looking at you, Anthem. Bethesda stuck with Fallout 76, delivering improvements, tweaked, and fixes being doled out on a constant basis, in addition to major content drops like Wastelanders and Steel Dawn that are more in line with what people expect from a Fallout game. No, Fallout 76 still isn't a great game, but at least it's a significantly better one. WARCRAFT 3 Reforged. WARCRAFT 3 is widely regarded as not only one of Blizzard's best games ever, and as one of the best PC games ever made, but also as one of the greatest strategy games of all time. A remaster that failed to live up to that legacy would have been bad enough, but WARCRAFT 3 Reforged went ahead and even managed to destroy the original experience for most people. Technical issues, bizarre design decisions, cut features, and promised changes that weren't included in the final game came together in a massively disappointing package. On top of that, Blizzard's handling of user-generated content and the fact that Reforged essentially replaced the original game, given the fact that the two shared the same client, only served to make a bad situation even worse. Left Alive. Front Mission isn't exactly the biggest video game property out there, and Left Alive wasn't anyone's most anticipated game either, but owing to its stealth-focused gameplay, some interesting promises, and the involvement of Metal Gear artist Yoji Shinkawa, it was still a game that many people were curious about. To say that it failed to live up to expectations would be a massive understatement. Left Alive was plagued by technical issues, from ugly visuals to hilariously bad animations, while playing the game was a complete nightmare, thanks to the horribly stiff and sluggish controls and terribly unbalanced AI. There were some that were suggesting prior to its launch that Left Alive might be one of 2019's biggest surprises. Well, it was in a way. No one thought it would be this bad. The Order 1886. We don't want to be unfair here. We do realize that Ready at Dawn's PS4 exclusive The Order 1886 is not without its merits. It has a fascinating setting, it has stellar production values, and it's still one of the best looking PS4 games we've ever played. But did the game live up to the high expectations that so many people had for it? No, it did not. Its cover-based third-person shooting felt uninspired and generic, flying in the face of the creativity and uniqueness the game displayed from a visual and atmospheric perspective. Its short length was a major disappointment, made even worse by inconsistent storytelling that failed to do justice to an excellent setting. For a game that was looking as fresh and unique as The Order 1886 was before its release, it ultimately turned out to be a rather tepid, forgettable experience. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. When Ghost Recon reinvented itself in 2017 as an emergent open-world sandbox experience with Wildlands, it didn't exactly set the world on fire, and the game wasn't without its issues. But it was clear to everyone that played it that Ubisoft had something very interesting on their hands, something that had the potential to morph into something special. Its sequel, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, squandered that potential entirely. Terrible enemy AI, technical issues galore, a bland open world that was so much larger than it needed to be, a boring story, and a completely unnecessary and broken system that basically turned the game into a poor man's Division. Ghost Recon Breakpoint was a massive disappointment. Like Fallout 76 though, we do have to point out that since then the game has made a bit of a recovery. Ubisoft has been updating and adding to the game on a regular basis, and additions such as AI companions and being able to turn off loot entirely have made it a better game. No, it still doesn't capitalize on the potential of Wildlands, but at least it isn't a complete disaster right now. Cyberpunk 2077 Consoles. You knew this was coming, didn't you? Cyberpunk 2077 was possibly the most highly anticipated video game of the last decade, and CD Projekt Red certainly did everything they could to ensure that hype remained at fever pitch levels. Maybe they shouldn't have. On PC, it's still a solid enough experience that you can get a lot of enjoyment out of, but on consoles, especially the last-gen ones, Cyberpunk 2077 is a complete disaster, with a plethora of bugs and technical issues that make us wonder how CDPR could ever think the game was ready for launch. In an unprecedented move, Sony completely pulled the game off of the Sony PlayStation Store owing to the terrible state it launched in, while everyone from digital storefronts to retailers to CDPR themselves started accepting refunds from a large number of people, with the whole situation leading to everything from CDPR stock falling drastically and the company being sued by investors for its misleading pre-launch promises and in many cases outright lies. Even outside of the technical issues, Cyberpunk 2077 fails to live up to many of CDPR's promises, but that's an entirely different conversation, so let's not get into that. Marvel's Avengers. Even before Marvel's Avengers launched, there were a lot of skeptics out there who weren't too thrilled with the direction the game was taking. Many wanted it to be a story-driven single-player cinematic experience, and yet Square Enix wanted it to be a live service shooter. And the skeptics were proven right. Marvel's Avengers was nowhere near as good as it should have been. Bland and repetitive missions, a completely broken gear system, a wide range of technical issues, and a number of other problems meant that the game never managed to get off to a good start, leading to a lukewarm reception from critics and players alike, and heavy financial losses for Square Enix. It doesn't help that the post-launch support for the game thus far has been quite lacking, with long stretches of time between content updates, leading to a constantly dwindling player base. We hope Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics find a way to right this ship sooner rather than later, but things aren't looking very good right now. Need for Speed Payback. The Need for Speed franchise has been through the ringer over the last decade, with more than a few entries that have left players disappointed, but 2017's Need for Speed Payback was definitely its nadir. Rather than forcing on solid free-roam gameplay, thrilling dynamic chases, and vehicle customization the way an arcade racer of its kind should, Payback instead shoved a terrible story, scripted sequences, and limited customization down players' throats. Mechanically, it still wasn't a bad game, but its strengths were unfortunately buried under a mountain of aggressive monetization, with the game being plagued by shockingly bad loot box mechanics that smothered the whole experience. Homefront: The Revolution. Homefront: The Revolution was a classic case of a game that constantly showed promise, but would, at the very next second, stumble under the weight of its many issues. It had a meaty campaign, an interesting central premise, and its combat could be genuinely fun at times, but there were just far too many problems that dragged the shooter down. Bland stealth, inconsistent storytelling, repetitive design, and like so many other games on this list, a bevy of technical issues that almost rendered the game completely unplayable at times. So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and we would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.